as an athlete, fighting the negative emotions and the negative reactions that come with failure is obviously one of the main focuses that we have when we're talking about mental performance. There's a certain amount of that will just come from the fact that you're a competitive person. But what happens when some of the stresses and the negative emotions that come with failure actually come from a place that is above and beyond or outside of just the fact that you're a competitive person that wants to succeed in that game? There's a good analogy that I like to use when I'm working with athletes that goes something like this. You're out in the middle of a lake and you're swimming and you're trying to keep your head above water. You're treading water, you're trying to keep your head above water. When you're keeping your head above water, that represents doing well in mental performance. You being in the lake, being in the water represents the stressful situation that you're in. So the competitive situation, the game that you're in, that's being in the water. Keeping your head above water represents being able to stay in a good place mentally. Now, as a mental performance coach working with athletes, we talk about really we call them micro tools like breathing, focus, routine, focal points, self-talk, things like that are really good at helping that athlete become a really good swimmer, so that when they're out there, they're able to keep their head above water. And those are great. Those are really important micro tools to be able to have. However, a lot of athletes, I would say most athletes, bring some sort of ankle weights in some way or another out there into the water with them. Ankle weights are beneath the surface. There's something that is dragging that athlete down, and it makes it even harder to swim and keep their head above water, no matter how well we're doing with our micro tools that make us a better swimmer. No matter how good we are doing breathing in the batter's box or focal point or convicted thinking, it's really hard when you have ankle weights dragging you down. Ankle weights can be anything that's really a bigger picture thing that you're bringing with you into your performance. So for a lot of athletes, they have a struggle with the identity that they have in sports. So sports becomes who they are, not what they do. That's an identity issue, which means that every time you fail in sports, it feels very personal. It feels like you are lesser of a person because you failed. That's an identity problem. That's an ankle weight. For some, it's a relationship that they have with their support system. As sad as that may seem, a lot of athletes do feel like, if I get out here, I wonder how that car ride home is going to be, or I wonder what the dynamic is going to be with my parent, or something like that, that makes it so they feel a lot more weight than they should above and beyond just being a competitive person. Depending on where you're at in your career, it might be the recruiting process. That's an exciting but also very stressful time that adds a lot of weight to your ankles and drags you down. It's very difficult. It's our job to help manage that. So a lot of mental performance is actually trying to figure out, while the athlete is on shore in one-on-one sessions or in a lesser intense practice environment, how can we address those ankle weights with that athlete? Now, sometimes that's really heavy stuff that needs a lot of unpacking, and some people are more able to do that than others. But we have to address that as a reality, to know that a lot of times when you fail and you have a hard time, regulating yourself emotionally, it comes from a different place than just being competitive. And so we want to be able to address that. I would encourage you to ask yourself what some of those ankle weights may be for you, and then work on, probably not all at once, and probably not all of the weights ever going to be able to come off, because we're complex in our careers and the way that we go about things. But ask yourself what those ankle weights are, and ask if there is something you can do about that to make it so you feel a little bit less pressure in the batter's box, because it's not something bigger than just this game in your mind riding on that. On the pitcher's mound, walking a guy is just walking a guy in a game, which we don't want to do. And if you're competitive, you don't want that. But does it have to do with your identity? Does it have to do with your support system? Does it have to do with the recruiting process that's adding more pressure to you? Those are just a few examples. There are more, obviously. But I think that's an important thing to think about and note. And again, it's a heavy topic, but mental performance has to look at everything from a big picture. And I hope that you are doing what you can to address those things that may be weighing you down.